As the old age saying goes, everybody starts from somewhere. And in Sparking Zero, you'll be starting from square one. And this video is here to help you out. Hey, what's going on everybody? It's on Drew back with another video today full of you, and today we're back with another Dragon Ball Sparking Zero video, and in today's video I'm going to be giving an overview of Dragon Ball Sparking Zero's gameplay mechanics. This video is more catered towards people who didn't play the Tenkaichi series, or old players who just need a fresh reminder on how things worked and played. So in this video we'll be going over basic gameplay and game mechanics within Dragon Ball Sparking Zero and the Tenkaichi series. So without further ado, let's hop straight into it. First of all, before we even hop into a match of Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, we gotta pick which controls we're using. Dragon Ball Sparking Zero provides two control schemes, standard controls and classic controls. Classic controls, as the name implies, are the classic set of controls that the Budokai Tenkaichi series has had before. So if you played the Tenkaichi games, you will be using these controls for sure. While standard controls take on the feel of more modern Dragon Ball games we see today, like the Dragon Ball Xenoverse series, or even Raging Blast, funny enough. I mean, the standard controls are almost a one-to-one replica of the Raging Blast controls, so if you have Raging Blast on a PlayStation 3, it's not a bad way to practice. Keep these controls in mind because they will be important later. Alright, you picked out your set of controls, let's hop into a Sparking Zero fight. Once the fight begins, you'll be greeted with a new sleek looking HUD that Sparking Zero has introduced. I mean, look at the comparison to BT3. Now let's give this HUD a quick breakdown. Right next to your character's portrait we have your HP gauge and your HP bars. Your HP gauge tells you how much health you have left within inside of a bar, and your HP bars tell you how many bars of life you have left. Right under your HP gauge is your ki gauge, and just like in the original Tenkaichi games, you have 5 bars of ki. Ki is extremely essential to your gameplay, as this allows you to perform special attacks such as your Kamehamehas and your Gallic guns, and allows you to perform certain movement options. To increase your ki, you can directly charge it yourself, or charge it slightly as you do hand-to-hand combat with your opponent. Once you have max ki, you can manually start charging to go over your 5 bars of ki to enter Sparking Mode. Sparking Mode is an enhanced state that your character takes on. In Sparking Mode, you'll be able to gain access to your character's ultimate, as well as unique strengths. This full power state that your character's in does decrease over time, so you can't stay in it forever. And right under your character's portrait is what Sparking Zero calls the skill count. In Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi 3, skill count was called blast stocks. This will effectively work the same way as it did back then. Skill count is basically your utility gauge. Skill count is going to allow you to perform your various moves, such as transformations, fusions, and your utility skills, such as the 2 new skills introduced into Sparking Zero like Super Perception or Revenge Counter. Skill count is only charged over time, and there's only specific circumstances that allow you to charge it faster. Right next to your skill count, you have 2 icons, your switch icon and your transformation icon. The transformation icon just displays the amount of available transformations for your character within that moment, while the switch icon indicates if a character on your team is available to tag in. And finally, the hit count. This displays the combo counter and the amount of damage dealt or received. You might have noted that the damage is scaled within the thousands, while within Sparking Zero in the Tenkaichi series, 1 health bar equates to 10,000 points of health. So you should keep that in mind when dealing damage to your opponent or if you're on the receiving end of it. That's it for the HUD, now let's actually get into the fighting. Hey guys, I just wanted to point out as a disclaimer, I will be using Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi 3 as reference, and I will also be using classic controls, as that was the only pair of controls we had back in Tenkaichi 3. Once loaded in the match, you'll be facing your opponent within the mid-range. There are 2 ranges to take note of, mid to long and close range combat. When in close range or the step-in barrier, you will always be facing your opponent no matter what, and your movement alters a bit. It's called the step-in barrier because as you tap X, you'll perform a step-in. Step-ins advance you towards your opponent and allows a small evasion window to evade incoming moves. When timed correctly, this leads to cool looking evasion plays. When within the step-in barrier, dashes are no longer accessible. Instead, you'll get sidestep or step evasions. This moves your character to the side and evades incoming attacks. This is very useful for smash attacks. Mid to long range is literally everything else. You'll be able to move in any direction more freely, and by pressing X at the same time, you'll get a standard dash. By pressing L2 and X at the same time, you'll get a Dragon Dash. This is much faster than the standard dash, but it consumes Ki, one of your resources. Dragon Dash has homing properties to close the distance and be right at your opponent's face. You can also control your Dragon Dash with the direction, but it loses its homing properties. By pressing X while doing a Dragon Dash, you'll get a Z-Burst Dash. A Z-Burst Dash is even faster than a Dragon Dash, and it also homes around your opponent moving towards their backside. In Sparking Zero exclusively, there is a new movement option called Short Dash. By tapping X, you'll execute this technique for rapid fast movement in any direction, as long as you're not in the step-in barrier. And finally, Ascending and Descending. By pressing R1, you'll jump, and by holding it, you'll fly up in the air. Hold R2 to descend from the air. By double tapping either of these, they will give you a quick version of each, which also consumes Ki. By pressing square, you'll perform a rush attack. Pressing this multiple times is called rushing, or a rush chain. This is your most basic form of combat. Keep this in mind for later. By holding square, you'll perform a smash attack. The power of the hit changes depending on how long the charge is. By holding this attack down all the way, you get a full power smash hit, now called Power Smash in Sparking Zero. If you time your perfect smash correctly, you can get a perfect smash attack. This version of the smash attack teleports the user at a much longer distance with an unblockable, damn near impossible to dodge attack. The trade-off for this powerful technique is that the window is very tight to get the smash attack. Currently, as of this recording right now, as of Thursday, September 19th, I am unsure if the perfect smash in Sparking Zero specifically keeps all the same properties from Tenkaichi 3. If somebody does know, please let me know in the comments down below, that would be greatly appreciated. By pressing triangle, you can perform a Ki Blast. Ki Blasts are useful as it can disrupt your enemy from charging their Ki or using certain moves. By holding down the triangle button, you can get a charge Ki Blast. Ki Blasts can be chained into each other by pressing it multiple times. Now, let's head into the menu. In Dragon Ball Z Tenkaichi 3 and Sparking Zero, every single character follows a pattern for their moveset. 2 Blast 1 moves, 2 Blast 2 moves, and 1 ultimate attack. That might sound confusing, but let me break it down. Blast 1 moves are your utility moves. These will consume your skill count at different values depending on the move. These are your power up to the very limit and wild sense type moves. Blast 2 moves are your special attacks, your Kamehamehas and your Meteor Crash type moves. These moves will always consume Ki instead at different values depending on the move. And your ultimate, as discussed before, is accessed when you enter Sparking mode. Remember when I said keep rushing in mind? Here's why. By pressing square a number up to 4 times, you can get different techniques. These are called rushing techniques. Every character in the game has 4 rushing techniques. For example, Goku End base form has these techniques. By pressing square once and then triangle, you'll get a heavy finish. Square twice and then triangle gives a Ki cannon. Square 3 times and then triangle gives flying kick. Square 4 times and then triangle gives another heavy finish. Every rushing technique is different for all characters in different orders, just like how Super Saiyan Goku right here is different to base Goku, as you can see on screen. You'll have to learn and remember all of your rushing techniques for your specific character. But 2 universal rush techniques in Sparking Zero are Lift Strike and Ground Slash, now called Grand Slash in Sparking Zero. By pressing up and triangle during a rush, you'll get a Lift Strike, sending your opponent flying in the air ready to extend your combo. By pressing down and triangle during a rush, you'll get a Grand Slash, sweeping your opponent off the ground, ready to extend your combo. There is also a new offensive mechanic in Sparking Zero. This is called the Vanishing Assault. Vanishing Assault can be performed within the step-in barrier and within the mid-range. Performing Vanishing Assaults within the mid-range will allow you to appear behind your opponent and attack them. If you're within the step-in barrier and a Vanishing Assault is performed, it'll knock back your opponent and you'll have a chance to carry out specific follow-up attacks. That's it for offense. Let's move to defense. By holding down circle, this activates your guard. You can orient your guard by using the up or down direction to guard high attacks or low attacks. An example of a high attack would be flying kicks, and an example of a low attack would be Grand Slash. Don't get this confused, your normal guard is still your strongest block. It's just special advantages happen if you were to correctly guard a specifically oriented attack. Now let's get into some counter mechanics. Making a return from Tenkaichi 3 are Z counters and super counters. If you're a Tenkaichi OG and confused by the term super counter, this is just one of the Z counter options in Tenkaichi 3 under a different name in Sparking Zero. To perform a Z counter, you have to press the guard button right before your enemy's follow-up attack lands. But be careful because your opponent can also Z counter your Z counter, which you could also Z counter their Z counter to your Z counter, and then they can also Z counter your Z counter to their Z counter to your Z. You understand what I mean. That exchange goes on until one person either runs out of ki or if one person messes up their timing for their Z counter and gets hit. Super counters are just a souped up Z counter. These are effective against almost all attacks. To perform a super counter, all you have to do is press up and square at the right time against your opponent's attack. This causes your character to go into a hard block animation, and similar to a Z counter, they teleport behind your enemy and attack. Now we're here, finally, the two new counter mechanics introduced within Sparking Zero. Revenge Counter, a new not so new mechanic within Sparking Zero. I say this because in Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi 3, there was a counter called Emergency Blaster Wave. While in a combo, by pressing L1 at the cost of some health, your character performs an explosive wave that gets the enemy off of you and stops their combo. This has now been replaced by Revenge Counter, now no longer costing health, instead it costs 2 skill counts. And finally, Super Perception. Perception can either consume ki or skill counts. This is depending on the attack that you're trying to counterattack. It says if you use Super Perception at the last moment against your opponent's rush attack, a sonic sway will be triggered. This leads me to believe that on classic controls, the input for perception is triangle and circle. Super Perception can also counter blast like Kamehameha, but at the cost of 2 skill counts. Since Sonic Sway was mentioned, I might as well talk about that as well. Sonic Sway allows you to quickly dodge your opponent's rushing attacks with this really cool looking animation. While dodging your opponent's rushing attacks, their ki will quickly reduce, and after dodging, you will counter them with a big strike. Now I think this is a good point in the video for me to talk about this right here.
What immaturity?
You see that clip? A lot of people don't understand what happened there, so I feel like it's best for me to break it down. We see right here Super Saiyan Rose Goku Black attacking Ultra Instinct Saiyan Goku, and we see UI Saiyan Goku spends 2 skill counts to try and attack Goku Black back. This, of course with your knowledge that you've gained in this video, is a revenge counter. Goku Black counters UI Saiyan Goku, triggering this special animation. We see Goku Black take a stance, and when Ultra Instinct Saiyan Goku tries to attack him, Goku Black spends 2 skill counts and then the animation plays. What Goku Black did here was perception. As we can see in this video, Gohan also takes a similar stance and counters Piccolo. What we can say here and safely assume is that UI Goku tried to do a revenge counter on Goku Black. Goku Black thus responded by doing perception and eating 2 of his skill counts. That's it for defense. Time to move on to the last bit of the video. You know we had to save the best for last. Now we're gonna go over all the clashes within Sparking Zero. Clashes are back in Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, and in my opinion, better than ever. There are 4 clashes within Sparking Zero, 2 old ones and 2 new ones. Let's go over the old ones. Beam struggles are back in Sparking Zero, and with a twist. Once 2 beam attacks clash within Sparking Zero, you'll be presented with this cool looking animation, and with this QTE. Remember when we had to spin the sticks around like crazy to beat the other player? Well, that's no more the case. Instead of spinning the sticks and causing your $80 controller to have stick drift, you're gonna have to wait for this meter to fill up to its fullest and then time it by pressing the triangle button. If timed correctly each time and better than the opponent, you will win the clash. And now we have the melee clash. When 2 dashes impact or 2 moves like Meteor Smash impact with each other, it's gonna cause this melee clash. When the clashes impact with each other, the QTE begins. First, you're gonna have to time your button press with the closing in circle as accurately as possible. And then the second QTE for this clash begins. Hey, remember at the beginning of the video when I said keep in mind the controls for later? Yeah, this is why. In Tenkaichi 3, you always had to spin the sticks. Now in Sparking Zero, there's 2 options. Depending on the controls that you pick, you either have to spin the sticks or mash a button. Classic controls for spinning the sticks, and standard controls for mashing the button. Just to interject in my own opinion here, this really sucks, at least for me personally. I'm gonna play on classic controls, and this will very much hinder me because PS5 controllers are expensive. Hopefully when Sparking Zero drops, the QTE option isn't tied to the controls, because if it truly is, then that sucks. Alright, let's talk about the 2 new clashes that are introduced into Sparking Zero. These are the Grab Clash and the Dash Clash. Try saying that 5 times fast. The Grab Clash is when 2 grab attacks clash with each other. This time, the QTE is holding down the button until it reaches its peak. If the peak is reached and the button is still being held down, it will bounce back and the meter will go down in reverse. And now the Dash Clash. This is when 2 short dashes collide. Once the QTE commences, you have 2 options to either press the melee button or the defense button. There are a total of 5 exchanges within this clash, and to be the winner of this clash, you have to win 3 out of those 5. To win an exchange, you just have to be the faster player to press the button. If you press the wrong button within an exchange, that counts as an automatic loss for that exchange. Now time to explain the boost system. For all of these clashes, a boost button can be used to gain an advantage at the cost of 1 bar of ki. Each boost has its own unique effect on each clash. You should be careful when using the boost, especially for the beam clash. After the beam struggle has concluded, your character won't be able to move for a while if the boost was used. So discerning when to use the boost in each clash is extremely important for any fight. And with that, we're done. I hope we've all enjoyed this video, but more importantly, I hope this video gave you good insight going into Sparking Zero. I'd love to do a more in-depth breakdown about Sparking Zero's mechanics when it actually comes out, so if you want to see that, like the video and also leave a comment. I love interacting with you guys. One last thing I want to mention before the video ends was the support that I've garnered over the past 2 videos that I posted. It is insane, and I don't think I can put into words how much I appreciate everybody liking, commenting on those videos. Pressing the subscribe button is actually insane. Taking their time, your time, out of your day to watch those videos, to watch this video and get to the end right here. It's insane. It's insane, and I don't think I can put it into words, but thank you so much. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and hopefully you enjoy my content in general in the future. Anyways, it's time for me to leave now. Auf Wiedersehen, watch your Supsilos, and Alonzi.